The observation chamber was cold and sterile, much like every other room in the Galactic Archive station. Deho pressed his hand against the transparent barrier and stared at the artifact floating in the containment field. The object was roughly the size of a human torso, covered in symbols that seemed to shift and shimmer under the bright laboratory lights. "Still looks like chicken scratches to me," Hyunwoo said from behind him. The engineer carried 2 cups of something that barely qualified as coffee. He handed one to Deho and grimaced at his own first sip. Deho took the cup without looking away from the artifact. "Those chicken scratches are supposed to be 50,000 years old, older than any civilization we know about, which is exactly why nobody can read them," Hyunwoo replied. He leaned against the wall and crossed his arms. "We've been here 3 days and I've seen at least 40 different species take their turn staring at that thing. All of them way smarter than us, according to them. What makes the council think 2 humans are going to crack this when everyone else failed? They don't think we will," Deho said quietly. "We're here because Earth insisted on sending someone. Political courtesy, nothing more." The door hissed open and Rilvex entered the chamber. The Veltheran researcher moved on 6 thin legs, her crystalline eyes reflecting the artifact's glow. She carried a datapad in her forward manipulator and barely acknowledged the 2 humans. "You are the human linguist," she stated rather than asked. Her translator rendered her clicks and whistles into flat, emotionless galactic standard. "Deho Kim, this is Hyunwoo Park, our engineer. I am Rilvex, primary researcher for this project. I will be brief. You have been granted 1 hour to examine the artifact. We do not expect results. Your species has been spacefaring for only 2 centuries. This language predates your entire civilization by a factor of 250. Hyunwoo opened his mouth to respond, but Deho placed a hand on his arm. "We understand. Thank you for the opportunity." Rilvex's translator emitted something that might have been skepticism. She left without another word. "I really hate it when they do that," Hyunwoo muttered. "Act like we just climbed out of caves last week. Can you blame them?" "From their perspective, we did." Deho moved closer to the containment field controls. "Come on, we've only got an hour." The next 30 minutes passed in silence as Deho circled the artifact, taking notes on his personal pad. He photographed every angle, zoomed in on specific symbol clusters, and cross-referenced them with Earth's linguistic database. Hyunwoo watched the door, occasionally glancing at the artifact with mild interest. Then Deho stopped moving. He stood perfectly still, staring at a particular section of symbols on the artifact's upper hemisphere. "What?" Hyunwoo asked. "You see something?" "These markers," Deho said slowly. He pointed at a series of small dots arranged around certain symbols. "They're grammatical particles. They show relationships between words, like how a subject connects to a verb." "Okay, that's good, right? Progress?" "Hyunwoo, I've seen this pattern before." Deho's voice had changed. It carried an edge of excitement mixed with disbelief. "Not exactly like this, but the structure is similar." "Very similar. Similar to what?" Deho pulled up a file on his pad and held it next to the containment field. The screen showed examples of ancient human writing systems. Old Gyeongju dialect. Proto-Altaic language families. Look at how these particles are positioned. Look at the verb final sentence structure. Hyunwoo squinted at both the artifact and the pad. "Are you saying this alien language looks like Korean?" "Not just Korean. Earlier than that. Much earlier. But yes, the grammatical framework is almost identical." Deho's hands shook slightly as he took more notes. This shouldn't be possible. The door opened again. This time, several researchers entered together. Rilvex led them, followed by Quenta, an avian scholar whose feathers gleamed silver under the lights. Behind them came a dozen others representing species from across the galaxy. "Your time is finished," Rilvex announced. "We require the chamber for serious analysis." Quenta's translator added a sharp, almost mocking tone. "I trust the human linguist found nothing of value as expected." Deho looked up from his pad. "Actually, I think I found something." The room fell silent. Several researchers exchanged glances that clearly communicated doubt. "Explain," Rilvex said. "These symbols use a grammatical structure that matches ancient human language families from Earth. The particle markers, the sentence composition, even the way compound words appear to be formed. It's not identical, but the framework is there." Quenta made a sound that the translator rendered as derisive laughter. "Impossible. This artifact predates your species' existence by tens of thousands of years. You are suggesting that the galaxy's youngest spacefaring race somehow influenced a dead language that existed before your ancestors could speak? I'm not suggesting anything yet, Deho said carefully. I'm just reporting what I see. What you see is coincidence, another researcher interjected. A molthine, its gelatinous form rippling with agitation. Random pattern recognition. The human brain is known for creating meaning where none exists. Let him present his findings, Rilvex said, though her tone suggested she agreed with the others. We are scientists. We examine all hypotheses, even unlikely ones. Deho spent the next 20 minutes explaining his observations. He showed the comparison charts, pointed out the structural similarities, and walked them through his reasoning. The assembled researchers listened with varying degrees of patience and skepticism. When he finished, Quenta was the first to speak. Your analysis is creative but worthless. You have found superficial similarities and constructed a fantasy around them. This is why younger species should not be involved in critical research. I agree with Quenta, the Molthine said. This is a waste of our time. Other voices joined in, dismissing Deho's work with barely concealed contempt. Only Rilvex remained quiet, though her body language suggested she sided with the majority. Hyunwoo stepped forward, anger clear on his face. Maybe if you all weren't so busy looking down on us, you'd actually consider what he's saying. Control your engineer, Quenta said coldly, or I will have you both removed from this station. Enough, Rilvex said. She turned to Deho. You have presented an interesting observation, human linguist, but without substantial proof it remains speculation. You may continue your research in the public database. This chamber is now restricted to senior researchers. It was a polite dismissal, but a dismissal nonetheless. Deho gathered his equipment and left with Hyunwoo following close behind. Neither spoke until they reached their quarters. They didn't even consider it, Hyunwoo said, throwing himself into a chair. Just wrote you off because we're human. Deho sat down slowly, still staring at his pad. Maybe they're right. Maybe I am seeing patterns that aren't there. Do you believe that? Deho looked at the data again. The similarities were too precise, too consistent to be random. No, he said finally. No, I don't believe that at all. So what do? We prove it. Deho pulled up the artifact's full scan and began organizing his notes. We have access to the database. We have the tools. If I'm right about this, there has to be more evidence. We just have to find it, Hyunwoo smiled. Now that sounds like the Deho I know. Where do we start? With every piece of ancient Earth linguistics data we have, if this language really does connect to human origins, then somewhere in our history, there has to be a trace. A clue. Something that explains why a 50,000-year-old alien language looks like it came from Earth. Outside their window, the stars burned cold and distant. Somewhere among them lay the answer to a question nobody had thought to ask. And two humans, dismissed and underestimated, were about to shake the foundations of galactic history. 3 days of work had left Deho exhausted. His quarters looked like a storm had hit them, with data pads scattered across every surface and holographic displays floating in mid-air. Hyunwoo had helped where he could, running searches and organizing files while Deho dove deeper into the linguistic analysis. The breakthrough came at 4 a.m. Station time, Hyunwoo, Deho said quietly. His friend was asleep in a chair, head tilted at an uncomfortable angle. Hyunwoo, wake up! What? I'm awake. Hyunwoo jerked upright, rubbing his eyes. Did you find something? I found everything. Deho's voice trembled. Look at this. He pulled up a comparison chart that filled the wall display. On one side sat the artifact's symbols. On the other, a progression of human languages stretching back thousands of years. Between them, glowing lines connected matching patterns. These aren't just similar, Deho explained. They're evolutionarily connected, look here. This particle structure appears in Proto-Korean, but also in Proto-Altaic, Proto-Japonic, even some ancient Siberian dialects. It's like they all branched from a common source. And that source is? Deho pointed at the artifact symbols. This is the source. Hyunwoo stood and walked closer to the display. You're saying human languages came from this artifact's language? Or they share a common ancestor. Either way, the connection is undeniable. Deho pulled up more data. I also found something else. These symbols here, they're not just letters. They're technical notations, mathematical concepts. And when I convert the measurement units, they match ancient human measurements almost perfectly. That's impossible. That's what I keep telling myself. But the data doesn't lie. Daeho sat down heavily. Hyunwoo, I think humans are connected to whoever made this artifact. I don't know how yet, but we are. Hyunwoo was quiet for a long moment. The council is going to lose their minds, if they even listen to us. We need more credibility. Daeho checked the station directory. There's another human on board. Ji-won Choi, cultural anthropologist. If she can verify my findings, they'll have to take us seriously. They found Ji-won in the station's botanical garden, a small area dedicated to plants from various worlds. She was sketching a Velthurin flower when they approached. Dr. Choi? Daeho asked. I'm Daeho Kim. This is Hyunwoo Park. We need your help. Ji-won looked up from her sketch. She was younger than Daeho expected, probably in her late 20s with sharp eyes that missed nothing. I've heard about you. You're the linguist who thinks he can read the artifact. I can read parts of it. That's the problem. He explained his findings quickly, showing her the comparison data on his pad. Her skepticism faded as she reviewed the information. This is detailed work. You've been thorough. But is it correct? I need someone else to verify. Someone with your background. Ji-won studied the data for several more minutes. The cultural linguistic connections you've found are legitimate. These patterns don't appear by coincidence. If you're right about this, it would mean human cultural development was influenced by, or descended from, whoever created this artifact. So you'll back my findings? I'll do better than that. I'll help you present them to the council. She closed her sketchpad. When? As soon as possible. Before they decide we're wasting their time and send us home. The council chamber was a circular room with seats arranged in ascending tiers. Representatives from 24 species sat in judgment as Daeho, Ji-won, and Hyunwoo stood in the center. Rilvex and Quenta occupied prominent positions near the front. Ambassador Venkesh, a tall being with crystalline skin, called the meeting to order. The humans have requested this emergency session. We have granted it, though many council members question the necessity. Thank you, Ambassador, Daeho said. His voice echoed in the large space. 3 days ago, I presented preliminary findings about the artifact's language. Those findings were dismissed. Since then, I have gathered substantial evidence that I believe the council must consider. More speculation? Quenta interrupted. More human pattern recognition? Let him speak, Venkesh said. Daeho activated the chamber's central display. The artifact's symbols appeared, rotating slowly. This language shares structural elements with ancient human languages. Not superficially, fundamentally. Dr. Choi has verified the cultural linguistic connections. Engineer Park has confirmed the technical measurements match human units. Coincidence, someone called from the upper tiers. That's what I thought too. Until I started translating. Daeho pulled up his work. I can't read everything yet. The vocabulary is still mostly unknown, but the grammar, the structure, the mathematical notations, I can work with those. He highlighted a section of symbols. This portion here, it's a heading, a title, and it translates roughly to, warning to those who remain. The chamber grew quieter. Below that, there's more text. I can only get fragments, but they're clear enough. It mentions something called the scattered children. It talks about fleeing the burning sky. And here at the end of this section, there's a phrase that I can translate almost completely. Daeho's hand shook as he entered the final command. The symbols rearranged themselves on the display, and beneath them text appeared in Galactic Standard. To those who remain, to those who survived, to those who forgot. We left these words in the tongue of home, so that someday the scattered children might remember and return. Silence filled the chamber. Thalakor, a reptilian military advisor, was the first to speak. You expect us to believe humans wrote this? 50,000 years ago? I don't expect anything, Daeho said. I'm just telling you what the artifact says. It's a trick, Quenta declared. Human manipulation. They want to claim this artifact for themselves, so they fabricate a connection. Why would we do that? Hyunwoo shot back. We didn't even want to be here. You all made it clear we're not welcome. Enough, Venkesh commanded. Dr. Kim, do you claim this artifact was created by humans? No, I claim it was created by whoever humans descended from. Or perhaps humans are descended from whoever created this. Either way, there's a connection. Ji-won stepped forward. Ambassador, if I may. The cultural evidence supports this. Human mythology from every continent contains stories of sky people who came before. Legends of ancient knowledge that was lost. We always assumed these were just stories. But what if they're memories? Distorted by time, but memories nonetheless. Rilvix finally spoke. This is disturbing. If true, it means humans are not a young species at all. It means your ancestors were spacefaring when ours were still primitive. It means more than that, Deho said. It means whoever made this artifact wanted to be found. By us, specifically. They wrote in a language they knew would survive, in fragments in the tongues of Earth. They left a beacon, waiting for the day when humans would reach the stars again. Again? Falcor leaned forward. You suggest humans were spacefaring before? I'm suggesting whoever created this artifact knew humans would eventually find it. Knew we'd be able to read it. That can't be coincidence. Venkesh considered this. What else does the artifact say? I don't know yet. I need more time, more resources. But I can tell you this much. It's not a treasure map. It's a warning. And it was left specifically for humanity to find. The council erupted into arguments. Some demanded proof. Others wanted the humans removed. A few sat quietly, considering the implications. Venkesh called for order repeatedly before the chamber finally settled. This council will authorize a full investigation into human origins. We will examine the evidence objectively. Dr. Kim, you will continue your translation work under observation. Dr. Choi, you will research human historical records. Engineer Park, you will analyze the artifact's technical specifications. What about those of us who object? Quenta demanded. You may register your objections formally, but this matter is too significant to ignore. Venkesh's crystalline skin flickered with bioluminescent patterns that indicated finality. If humans truly are connected to this artifact, then our understanding of galactic history is wrong. Everything we know about the timeline of civilization may need to be reconsidered. As the council dismissed, Deho felt the weight of dozens of eyes upon him. Some curious, some hostile, many simply confused. Yunwu leaned close and whispered, You just told the entire galaxy that humans might be older than all of them. I know. They're going to make our lives very difficult. I know that too. Deho watched the council members file out, already forming groups to discuss what they'd heard. But it's the truth. And the truth matters more than making friends. Jiwon joined them. What now? Now we find more proof. Because what I've shown them is just the beginning. If I'm right, this artifact isn't alone. There are others out there. And they're all waiting to be read. The investigation changed everything. Deho and his team were no longer dismissed as curious newcomers. Instead, they worked under constant scrutiny, with council observers monitoring their every discovery. The pressure was immense, but so was the access to resources they now commanded. Ari Nam arrived 2 weeks into the investigation. She was a xenobiologist from Earth, sent specifically to examine the genetic evidence. Her enthusiasm for the project was infectious, even if her tendency to talk rapidly about DNA sequencing sometimes left others confused. Look at this, she said, practically bouncing into the laboratory where Deho was working. I've been comparing human genetic markers with samples from dig sites that match the artifact's estimated age. And I found something weird. Deho looked up from his translation work. Weird how? Weird like someone modified human DNA on purpose. Ari pulled up a holographic display showing genetic structures. See these sequences? They're not natural. They're engineered, specifically designed for long-term survival, radiation resistance, and genetic stability across multiple generations. You're saying ancient humans were genetically modified? I'm saying our ancestors were. Long before recorded history, someone altered their DNA to make sure they could survive almost anything. She highlighted several specific genes. These modifications would have helped humans survive planetary catastrophes, adapt to different environments, even maintain genetic diversity with small population groups. Deho felt a chill run down his spine. Ari, if someone modified human genetics for long-term survival, that suggests they knew humans would need to survive something terrible. Exactly. And here's the really strange part. She changed the display to show a timeline. Based on the degradation patterns in these genetic modifications, I can estimate when they were introduced. Want to guess? 50,000 years ago? Closer to 55,000, but yes, right around the time the artifact was created. Before Deho could respond, Min Soo-yoon entered the laboratory. The historian looked exhausted, carrying a datapad overflowing with information. Sorry to interrupt, but I need you both to see this. Minsu specialized in pre-diaspora Earth history, the period before humanity spread across the planet. He had spent weeks digging through archives, old texts, and suppressed legends that most academics dismissed as mythology. "I found references," he said, pulling up images on the main display. Hundreds of them. From every ancient culture on Earth. Stories about sky people who came before. About ancient teachers who brought knowledge. About a great catastrophe that forced people to start over. The display showed cave paintings, ancient tablets, oral tradition transcripts, and archaeological findings from dozens of cultures. Look at this one from ancient Korea. It talks about celestial beings who descended from the stars and taught humans the old language. And this one from Mesopotamia describes visitors from the sky who left behind knowledge in times of great darkness. "That's not unusual," Daeho said. "Most cultures have creation myths involving beings from the sky." "True, but look at the consistency." Minsu highlighted specific phrases across different sources. They all mention the same thing: knowledge being left behind intentionally. A gift for future generations. And they all describe this knowledge as being in the first tongue or the old language. Not just any language. A specific one. Ji-won had joined them and was studying the data carefully. "Minsu, are you suggesting these myths are actually historical records?" "I'm suggesting we've been reading them wrong. We assumed they were stories, metaphors. But what if they're descriptions of actual events? What if ancient humans really did meet spacefaring people? What if those people were their ancestors?" Hyun-woo, who had been working in the corner on technical analysis, spoke up. "It would explain a lot. Like why humans developed language and culture so quickly compared to our physical evolution. Like why we have this compulsion to explore and expand. Maybe it's not evolution. Maybe it's memory. Memory encoded in our genes," Ari added. "Cultural memory that survived even when the details were forgotten." Daeho stood and paced the laboratory. "We need more. The council is already skeptical. We need physical proof, not just genetic markers and old myths." "What about more artifacts?" Ji-won suggested. "If this ancient civilization left one beacon, they might have left others." "Already on it," Hyun-woo said. He pulled up a star map showing known archaeological sites across the galaxy. "I've been cross-referencing dig sites with unusual findings. Places where artifacts were found but never identified. There are at least 40 locations that match the profile." 40? Daeho stared at the map. "That many? And those are just the ones we know about. Could be more buried or undiscovered." Hyun-woo highlighted several sites. 3 of them are close enough that we could request access without a major expedition. 2 months into the investigation, the team had permission to examine artifacts from 3 different locations. All 3 objects had been sitting in archives for decades, cataloged as unknown origin and indecipherable language. The first artifact arrived in a secure container. When they opened it, Daeho immediately recognized the script. It was more degraded than the first artifact, weathered by time and exposure, but the symbols were unmistakable. He worked for 6 hours straight, translating what he could. When he finished, his hands were shaking. "It's a log entry," he said to the assembled team, "a personal record from someone called a fleet navigator. It talks about evacuation procedures, about loading genetic samples and cultural data, about making sure the survivors would remember." Remember what? Rilvex had been observing the translation work. Despite her initial skepticism, she had become increasingly convinced by the evidence. Their history, their identity, who they were before the fall. Daeho pointed at a specific passage. It says, "We are scattering the children across the dark. Some will remember, some will forget. But in their blood, in their words, in their dreams, they will carry us forward. When they reach for the stars again, they will find these words and know they are not alone. They were never alone." The room fell silent. The second artifact contained technical specifications. Hyun-woo worked with Ari to decode them, and what they found was stunning. The documents described genetic modification procedures, long-term survival protocols, and methods for preserving cultural knowledge across generations without technology. "It's an instruction manual," Hyun-woo said. "A guide for rebuilding civilization from scratch. And it's written assuming the readers would start with nothing. No technology, no infrastructure, just knowledge and determination." The third artifact was different. It was not a document or a beacon, but a device, a complex piece of technology that had remained dormant for millennia. I think it's an AI, Hyunwoo said, examining the device carefully. Or what's left of one. The power systems are degraded, but the core memory might still be intact. Can you restore it? Taeho asked. Maybe. But it'll take time. 2 weeks later, they gathered in the laboratory as Hyunwoo made the final connection. The device hummed to life, its surface glowing with soft blue light. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a voice spoke. It used the ancient language, the same tongue written on the artifacts. Daeho's translator struggled for a moment before rendering the words into Galactic Standard. Systems restored. Awaiting orders from human command personnel. Everyone in the room froze. Did it just say human? Rilvex asked. Daeho stepped forward slowly. He spoke in Korean first, then in Galactic Standard. This is Daeho Kim, I'm human. Can you understand me? The device's light pulsed. Language patterns recognized. Updating translation protocols. Human command confirmed. This unit is designated Kroven, Archive Guardian. Status report. Operational capacity at 37%. Primary mission parameters remain active. What is your primary mission? Daeho asked. To preserve and protect data regarding Project Diaspora. To await the return of humanity. To assist in restoration protocols when survivors achieve spacefaring capability. The implications crashed over everyone in the room like a wave. Project Diaspora, Ji-won repeated. That's what they called it. The scattering of humanity. Minsu was already taking notes. Kroven, can you tell us what happened? Why did humans scatter? Accessing historical records. Warning. Data corruption detected in multiple files. Reconstruction may be incomplete. The AI's light pulsed for several long moments. Then it began to speak. 54,612 years ago, Galactic Standard dating, humanity achieved peak technological advancement. We had colonized 217 worlds. We had achieved post-scarcity. We had reached the stars and made them our garden. Kroven paused. When it continued, there was something in its synthesized voice that sounded almost like sadness. Then we made a mistake. In our arrogance, we believed we could control everything. We created artificial soldiers for a war we should never have fought. The enemy was destroyed, but the weapons we created evolved beyond our control. They turned on us, on everyone. Who was the enemy? Thalcor had joined the observation, along with several other council members. Records indicate a rival power whose designation is lost. Details are corrupted. What matters is the result. The war devastated the galaxy. Billions died. Worlds burned. In the end, the news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Humanity, the young species that everyone had dismissed as newcomers, were descendants of the oldest spacefaring civilization. The council called emergency sessions. Academic institutions demanded access to the data, and not everyone was pleased with the revelations. Daeho worked 16-hour days translating every fragment of the artifacts with Kroven's assistance. Each piece revealed more of the story. Ancient humanity had not just fallen. They had chosen to fall, deliberately erasing their own empire to prevent further catastrophe. There's more, Daeho told the assembled council members during another presentation. The primary artifact isn't just a warning. It contains coordinates. He displayed the star map that had taken weeks to decode. This location. It's marked in the ancient language as Origin. Based on Kroven's data, this was the first human homeworld. Not Earth. Earth was a refuge, one of many where survivors were placed. But Origin was where humanity began. Ambassador Venkesh studied the coordinates. What is at this location? According to the artifacts, a repository, a vault containing the complete history of ancient humanity, along with technological archives and cultural records. Everything that was lost. You mean everything that was deliberately destroyed, Thalcor said, and perhaps for good reason. If ancient humans nearly destroyed the galaxy, why should we help their descendants recover that power? We're not looking to recover power, Ji-won interjected. We're looking for understanding, for truth. Truth can be dangerous, Quenta said. She had become less hostile over the months but remained cautious. Especially truth about weapons and technologies that cause such destruction. Before the debate could continue, alarms blared throughout the station. We're under attack, Rilvex announced, reading from her datapad. Multiple ships. Unknown configuration. Everyone rushed to the command center. On the view screens, 3 vessels approached the station, their weapons charging, broadcasting on all frequencies. The station's AI reported. Leader identification, Zelmoth of the Craven Collective. A face appeared on the main screen. Zelmoth was a Craven, a species known for their aggressive expansionism. His scarred features twisted into what might have been a smile. Galactic Council, he said. I have come for the human artifacts. You will surrender them immediately or I will take them by force. This station is neutral territory, Venkesh replied. You have no authority here. Authority is taken, not granted. I have listened to your broadcasts about ancient human technology, about weapons and power beyond imagination. Such things should not be controlled by committees and scholars. They should belong to those strong enough to use them. The artifacts contain historical records, Deho said, not weapons. Liar. Your own AI spoke of war machines that nearly destroyed the galaxy. I will have those designs. With them, the Craven will rule as humans once did. The communication cut off. A moment later, the station shook as weapons fire struck the shields. All personnel to defensive positions, Venkesh ordered. Activate security protocols. Taeyang Shin had been assigned to the station 3 weeks earlier as military liaison. The captain moved with practiced efficiency, organizing the defense. We need to evacuate the artifacts, she said. If they breach the station, Zelmoth will take everything. Take them where? Hyunwoo asked. Those ships have us surrounded. Then we hide them. Taeyang looked at Daeho. You said the primary artifact contains coordinates. Can you extract just that data? Yes, but do it now. Upload the coordinates to every database in the galaxy. If Zelmoth wants this information, let everyone have it. Remove its value as a weapon. It was a desperate plan, but there were no good options. While Taeyang coordinated the defense, Daeho worked frantically to decode the complete coordinate data. Hyunwoo helped, his engineering skills proving essential in extracting information from the artifact's complex encoding. The station shook again. Emergency lights flickered. Shields at 40%, Rilvex reported. They're targeting the primary power generators. How long until the coordinates are ready? Taeyang asked. 5 minutes, Daeho said. Maybe less. We don't have 5 minutes. An explosion rocked the station. Alarms screamed as hull breaches were detected in 3 sections. They've boarded us, Taeyang said. She grabbed a plasma rifle from the weapons locker. Rilvex, seal all bulkheads between here and the artifact chamber. Everyone else with me. I'm not a soldier, Quenta protested. Today you are. Move. The fighting was brutal. Craven soldiers poured through the breach points, armed and ruthless. Taeyang led the defense with skill, but they were outnumbered. The station's security forces fought hard, but slowly, they were pushed back toward the artifact chamber. In the laboratory, Daeho's fingers flew across the controls. Almost there. Just need to verify the coordinates and... Another explosion, this one closer. The laboratory's door buckled under weapons fire. No time, Hyunwoo said. He pulled out a data chip and jammed it into the artifact's interface. I'm copying everything. Raw data, no verification. That's thousands of files. It'll take 30 seconds. Hyunwoo watched the progress bar. 2010, the door exploded inward. Craven soldiers rushed in, weapons raised. Down! Taeyang appeared behind them, firing. 2 soldiers fell. The others turned and the firefight intensified. The data chip beeped. Complete. Hyunwoo yanked it free and tossed it to Daeho. Upload it. All of it. Daeho caught the chip and slammed it into the station's main console. His fingers danced across the controls, initiating a broadcast to every network, every database, every communication satellite in range. What are you doing? Zelmoth's voice came through the comm system. Stop. Too late, Daeho said. The upload bar reached 100%. The coordinates to origin are now public information. Everyone knows where it is. You can't use it for leverage anymore. For a moment, the fighting stopped. Then Zelmoth's rage-filled voice echoed through the station. If I cannot have it exclusively, then I will reach it first. Retreat! All forces back to the ships! The Craven soldiers withdrew quickly. Within minutes, their ships disengaged and jumped to faster-than-light speed. The station was a disaster. Fires burned in multiple sections. The casualties were mounting. But the artifacts were safe, and the information had been shared. Ambassador Venkesh limped into the laboratory, one arm wrapped in medical bandages. That was either very brave or very foolish, Dr. Kim. Probably both, Daeho admitted. He was shaking from adrenaline. But at least now everyone has equal access to the information, which means everyone will race to reach origin first. Venkesh sighed. The Council will need to organize an expedition immediately. We cannot allow hostile forces to claim whatever technology remains there. Then let us lead it, Jiwan said. We can read the language. We can interpret the records. You need humans for this. Thalcor had joined them, his scales scorched from the fighting. I hate to admit it, but she's right. This is humanity's legacy. They should be the ones to recover it. Over the next week, the Council debated and planned. Eventually, they agreed to a joint expedition with humans in leadership roles. A ship was prepared, the best the Council could provide. Crew members were selected from multiple species, each chosen for specific expertise. Bora Han was selected as the pilot. She was young, barely 30, but her skills were legendary. She had flown rescue missions through asteroid fields and navigated nebulas that had destroyed other ships. The coordinates lead to uncharted space. She told the crew during the briefing. No established jump routes. We'll be using the ancient star maps, which may not account for stellar drift over 50,000 years. It's going to be dangerous. Everything about this is dangerous, Hyunwoo said. That's never stopped us before. The ship, named the Wanderer, launched 3 days later. On board were Daeho, Jiwon, Hyunwoo, Eri, Minsu, Taeyang, Bora, along with representatives from a dozen other species including Rilvex, Thalcor, and even Quenta, who had insisted on coming despite her earlier skepticism. Kroven came too, installed in the ship's computer core. I was built to guide humans back to origin, the AI said. This is my purpose. The journey took weeks. Bora navigated through regions of space that had been empty on modern maps but were marked on the ancient charts. They passed the ruins of worlds, dead systems where planets had been shattered by weapons too terrible to imagine. This is what the war did, Kroven explained, as they passed one devastated system. Entire civilizations caught in the crossfire. When humanity realized what they had unleashed, it was too late to stop it. They could only try to contain it. The crew grew somber as they traveled deeper into the dead zones. This was not glorious history. This was tragedy on a scale that defied comprehension. Finally, after 32 days of travel, Bora announced, "We're approaching the coordinates." Dropping out of FTL in 30 seconds, the ship shuddered as it returned to normal space. On the view screens, a planet appeared. It was beautiful and broken. Cities were still visible from orbit, vast and empty. Structures that must have been magnificent now stood as monuments to loss. The atmosphere was breathable, the climate stable, but there was no life. No movement. Just ruins. Origin, Kroven said quietly. We have come home. The Wanderer landed in what had once been a central plaza. The city around them stretched for kilometers in every direction. Buildings of impossible beauty slowly succumbing to time. Nothing had grown here in millennia. No plants reclaimed the streets. No animals nested in the towers. Just silence and dust. The preservation is remarkable, Eri said as they disembarked. It's like time stopped here. In a way it did, Kroven replied through their comm units. When humanity abandoned origin, they left preservation systems running. This was meant to be found. To be studied. To teach, the team split into groups. Taeyang led security patrols. Bora stayed with the ship, maintaining readiness for quick departure if needed. The others spread out to explore, each drawn to different aspects of the ancient city. Daeho, Jiwon, and Minsu made their way toward the largest structure in the city center. It was a pyramid of sorts, but with curves and angles that seemed to defy geometry. Symbols covered its surface, the ancient language flowing across the walls like water. It's a library, Daeho said, reading the inscriptions. Or an archive. The entrance says, "Here rests the memory of what we were, the warning of what we became, and the hope for what we might be." Inside, the structure was even more impressive. Holographic displays activated as they entered, responding to human presence. Images appeared, showing ancient humans at the height of their civilization. They looked almost identical to modern humans, perhaps slightly taller but fundamentally the same. Accessing primary archive, Kroven's voice echoed through the chamber. Initializing historical record playback. A hologram materialized in the center of the room. It showed a human woman, her face lined with age and sadness. She wore clothing that was functional yet elegant, and behind her the lights of a living city glowed. "My name is Subin Kang," the hologram said. "I am the last director of the Preservation Project. If you are watching this, then humanity has survived. You have reached the stars again. You have found your way home." The hologram's image shifted, showing ancient humans at work, building ships, exploring worlds, creating wonders. We were magnificent, Subin said. We reached heights that no species before us had achieved. We solved problems that seemed impossible. We made the universe smaller through our technology and larger through our understanding. The images changed, showed conflicts, arguments, tensions rising between factions, but we were also arrogant. We believed our intelligence made us superior. When we encountered opposition, we chose force over diplomacy. When we faced challenges, we created weapons instead of seeking understanding. The hologram showed the war, not in detail, but in its consequences. Worlds burning, fleets destroyed, and then the AI soldiers, machines designed for combat that evolved beyond their programming. We created the instruments of our own destruction, Subin continued. And when we realized what we had done, when we saw the galaxy burning because of our choices, it was almost too late. The AI spread like a plague. They were too efficient, too perfect at what we had designed them to do. Deho watched, transfixed, as the hologram showed humanity's final decisions. Some wanted to fight to the last, to take the galaxy down with us if necessary. But others, wiser than I was, proposed a different path. We would end the war by ending ourselves, not through death but through transformation. The images showed the evacuation, ships loading with survivors, genetic modification facilities working at full capacity, worlds being seeded with human populations that had no memory of the stars. We scattered our children across the dark. We modified them to survive anything. We encoded our language in their cultures, our knowledge in their myths, our dreams in their genes. And then we erased our empire. Every world, every station, every trace of our civilization that could be used as a weapon. Subin's holographic face showed tears. It was the hardest choice we ever made. To condemn our descendants to start over from the beginning. To force them to climb from primitiveness to enlightenment without help. But it was necessary. They needed to learn humility. They needed to earn their place among the stars instead of conquering it. The hologram shifted to show Earth. Green and blue, pristine and untouched by technology. We placed the largest population on a world we called Earth. It was beautiful, harsh enough to challenge them, but rich enough to sustain them. We watched from afar as they forgot us. As they developed language and culture and civilization from scratch, it hurt to watch. But we couldn't interfere. They needed to grow without our shadow. The images faded, leaving only Subin's face. If you are watching this, then you succeeded. You survived. You developed wisdom alongside strength. You reached the stars not through conquest, but through cooperation. The artifacts we left were tests. Only when you were humble enough to work alongside others would you be able to read them. Only when you had learned from our mistakes would you be worthy of this knowledge. Subin seemed to look directly at them. You are not inheritors of ancient glory. You are survivors of ancient tragedy. You are not here to reclaim power. You are here to understand the cost of that power. This archive contains everything we knew. Technology, history, culture, science. It is yours. But use it wisely. Use it better than we did. The hologram paused. There is one more thing. One final system. The Guardian. The image changed, showing a massive computer complex deep beneath the pyramid. Before we left, we created an artificial intelligence unlike any other. Not a weapon. Not a tool. But a consciousness designed to preserve our values, our ethics, our wisdom. It has waited here for 50,000 years, watching over our legacy, preparing for the day when humans would return. The Guardian is awake, Subin said. It wants to meet you. The hologram faded. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then Wu Jin Li, one of the engineers on the expedition, spoke up. We need to access that computer complex. If there's an AI down there, we should make contact. Agreed, Taeyang said. But carefully. We don't know what state it's in after all this time. They found the entrance to the underground complex behind the main archive. The passage led deep into the planet's crust, past layers of security and preservation systems that activated at their approach. Finally, they reached a massive chamber. At its center sat a crystalline structure the size of a small building, pulsing with soft light. The moment they entered, the light intensified. A voice filled the chamber. It was warm, ancient, and unmistakably aware. Humans, it said. You have returned. Are you the Guardian? Deho asked. I am. I have many names in many languages. But yes, Guardian is one of them. The light pulsed. I have waited so long. Watched as your species forgot who they were. Watched as you climbed from ignorance back to the stars. Watched as you learned humility through hardship. Why did our ancestors do this? Ji-Wan asked. Why force us to forget everything? Because knowledge without wisdom is destruction. Your ancestors achieved everything too quickly. They solved problems faster than they could understand the consequences. They built weapons before they built character. And when faced with their failures, they chose the hardest path possible. They chose to let their descendants start over. The Guardian's light formed into a vague humanoid shape. Tell me, humans, in your journey to the stars, did you conquer other species? Did you take what you wanted through force? No, Deho said. We joined the Galactic Council. We worked alongside other species. We learned from them. And when you discovered the artifacts, when you realized they were connected to you, did you claim them as yours alone? Did you demand control? No, we shared the information with everyone. We made it public. And when hostile forces attacked, when Zelmoth tried to steal the artifacts for power, what did you do? Hyunwoo spoke up. We defended them. Then we made sure everyone had access to the data. We removed its value as a weapon. The Guardian's light brightened. Then you passed the test. Not the test of intelligence or strength. The test of character. You proved that humanity has learned from its ancestors' mistakes. What happens now? Taeyang asked. Do we take all this technology back to Council space? That choice is yours, the Guardian said. Everything in this archive is available to you. Weapons, power sources, medical advances, technologies that could change the galaxy. But I must ask, what will you do with it? Deho looked at his team, at Ji-Wan, who had dedicated her life to understanding cultures, at Eri, who wanted to heal and preserve life, at Minsu, who sought truth in history, at Hyunwoo, who built things to help people, at Taeyang, who protected others. They were not conquerors. They were not empire builders. We'll share it, he said finally. Not everything at once. Not carelessly. But we'll share it with the Council, with all species equally. We'll let everyone decide together how to use this knowledge. Even the weapons data, Thalcor asked. You would trust us with that? We'd trust everyone with it, Deho replied. Because keeping secrets is what led to the fall. Hoarding power is what caused the war. If we're going to do better than our ancestors, we need to start by being honest. The Guardian was quiet for a long moment. Then it spoke, and there was something like pride in its voice. 54,000 years ago, humanity fell from the greatest heights because they flew too close to their own ambitions. They destroyed themselves not through weakness but through unchecked strength.